continue with our discussion last week. In my last week discussion, we were looking at several basic conditions that are needed for Buddhist, ethics, or any type of discussion on ethics. Now, we looked at K. Jayatilaka's analysis, and it highlights 4 requirements for ethics: free will, life after death, results of actions here and hereafter, and the ultimate goal, nirvana, the highest good. Now, these are some of the things that are needed when we talk about ethical behavior. Now, ethical behavior is basically what we do and what we say to which we must bear responsibility. Now, this concept of responsibility is very important because any ethical actions can be good or bad. But whether it is good or bad, in ethical actions, we must bear responsibility. That is the most important thing. Because if you are not responsible for that, then if you can't take the responsibility, then that cannot be considered to be ethical action. Now, in Buddhism, in the general account of karma, we know that there is a statement, Chetana ahang bhikkhave kammang vadami. Chetana. So, Chetana is, according to the Buddha, Chetana is that which makes karma, karma. In other words, without Chetana, there is no karma. Now, Chetana, we translate this word into English as volition or intention. Now, if you do not have intention, if you do not have volition, if you have not willed that action, then you are not, that is not an action. In fact, if there is no Chetana, then it is only happening. Something unintentional, something that we did not intend. Now, even in law, the law is keen to establish that you had intention. Now, if the courts could not prove that there was intention to do that particular thing, then you cannot be guilty of that, okay? So, the intention is very important. For example, something happens, you hit a person and that person dies. But of course, it is very important to determine whether you had the intention to kill that person, right? If you had the intention to kill that person and then hit, if that person got killed, then of course you are responsible for killing. But you did not have the intention to kill. But of course, because you hit, that person got killed, and then you are not guilty for killing a person, but you are guilty for something lesser. Now, it is the same rule that applies if an accident happened on the road and somebody dies when you are driving. But then you will not be guilty of really killing a person because you don't drive your vehicle thinking that you will kill somebody. Okay? You don't think usually like that. So, you drive your vehicle, but something happens and somebody gets killed. So, you are guilty, but you are not guilty of killing because you did not have intention to kill, okay? So, the intention is very important. Now, it is the part of actually the intention that we have what we call free will. I will talk to you about it a little bit at length next. But first we need to be aware these are certain preconditions. So number one is free will, number two is life after death. Again, if we do not believe in life after death, then there is no point of doing many good things. Unless you get vipaka or result for what you are doing, then there is no point of doing. So for many people, of course, it doesn't mean that you should not do good things if there is no after death, life after death. Yeah, no, it is not like that actually. Even if there is no life after death, still you should do good things. But basically, when people are engaged in religious activities, you believe that you going to get this result after that death. So the rebirth is a precondition for again religious action, and then life after death and the results of actions here and hereafter both are connected, and then ultimate good. Ultimate good in the sense we as Buddhists, we do everything thinking about the ultimate goal. Now, what makes what we do meaningful is our ultimate goal. I mean, if you do not have this ultimate goal, nirvana, then many things we do will not have much meaning. For example, we can take the concept of dana, concept of giving. Now, in the Buddhist world, there is so much giving. In the Buddhist world, there is so much giving. I read in public media that I think Burma is one of the biggest countries that donate things. And there are a couple of 100,000 monks and nuns. They are being looked after by the people. So people give so much. Now, why do people give so much? Now, sometimes those people who give, they are not very rich. Some people can be rich, but many people are not rich. They are very ordinary people, but they give so much. Whatever the little they have, they give so much. Now, why? In order to understand this, you really have to think about the ultimate goal. Now, ultimate goal is nirvana. Nirvana means a state where you don't have defilements in your mind. Your mind is pure. Now, defilements or the defiling factors, the factors that defile our mind, basically lobha, dosa, moha. Lobha or tanha. Now, this tanha is a key factor, that defiles our mind, right? Now, in order to get rid of tanha, you give. When you give, you give up. You give up your ownership. So giving is really giving up. You give up. You give up your ownership. Now, why do Buddhists give so much? Because they want to get rid of their tanha. Now, when you get rid of your tanha, lobha, dosa, moha, then of course your mind gets purified. Now you see, ultimate goal, it is with reference to that ultimate goal, the kind of things we are doing have to be understood, right? You become nuns and you become monks also. Why do you live this life? Again, the meaning of this life is the ultimate goal. So you see, the ethical life has to have certain preconditions, okay? Certain prior beliefs. So these four things, free will and the life after death, the results of actions here and hereafter, and the ultimate goal, nirvana. So those are very important things when we talk about ethical behavior. In my last week discussion, I also mentioned determinism, niyativada, and also the problem of free will. Today I would like to discuss with you this idea of free will. Whether we have free will, whether we have liberty to do things, whether we are free to do things. Now, when we talk about the determinism, and then determinism and freedom usually don't go together. They are opposed to each other, okay? So if we are determined, then the idea is that we are not free, okay? If we are free, then we are not determined. So on the one hand, we have determinism. On the other hand, we are talking about free will, freedom to act. Now, you know, these two things are very important. Basically, we talk about several types of determinism. We have theistic, determinism. Theistic determinism, and also we have karma determinism. We have natural determinism. We have causal determinism. Okay. Now, there are different types of determinism. Whatever the type of determinism, all these have common characteristic. The common characteristic is that your life is determined. What you do has been decided before, prior. Or I could not, another, we can have biological determinism. So all these ideas say that, you know, your life has been decided by other factors. Now basically when we talk about free will, we say that I decide what I want to do, right? But then this view says that no, you are not deciding what you want to do. Somebody else, some other force has decided already what you are going to do. Although you think that you are free to do, you are making decisions, actually you are not making decisions according to this view. You are not making decisions. That decision is you are bound to do that decision. Then the issue is that then are you responsible for what you are doing? You know, that's the important thing. Now, theistic determinism means you believe that God created you. Now, when the creation is to view, the view of creation is when God created universe, including human beings and other things, in this God's creation, it says that God had a plan. So he has some idea to guide this universe that he created to some end. So for that he created human beings. So according to this view, knowingly or unknowingly, we are serving that purpose. Okay? We don't know it. But to see that actually God created us, each one of you, in order to do some specific job. Although we think we are free, according to this view, we are not free. What we do is actually what God initially decided for us. So theistic determinism is everything in the universe is very complex, but one machine that leads to some one destination. So everything has been programmed to reach that. So that is a theistic determinism. Now the problem is, if God has decided everything, if we behave according to what God has decided, then are we free? So you can see that the theistic determinism and human freedom cannot go together. In fact, in the afternoon session, we will be discussing world religions. When we discuss world religions, the theistic religions, basically in the world we have Judaism, Christianity and Islam. These religions have this problem. On the one hand, they talk about the God's creation, but on the other hand, they say that God gave free will to human beings. But these two ideas do not go together. If God created everything and if God has a plan, then of course how can you say that you are free to do anything? So these two ideas are problematic, don't go together. But theistic religions want to say that although God created, God gave freedom to act for people. But of course the two ideas don't go together. So the theistic idea is that theistic determinism means the belief that God created universe for a purpose, and then in that purpose each and every human being has some function to do. So that is the basic idea of theistic determinism. So this is one form of determinism, which is very wide in the world. And then next is karma determinism. Now karma determinism is we believe that everything is happening due to the past karma. We have this Pali term, sabbang ubbe kata hetu. Everything is due to past karma. Now, if everything is due to past karma, what we are doing in this life is a result of past karma. Then, if it is a result of past karma, can you do differently? No, you can't do differently. In one of the discussions, Buddha says about the Jaina belief. Jainas had, this type of belief that they do things because of in order to burn the past karmas. So they thought that past karmas are the deciding factor. So in order to burn out these karmas, they practice certain things. And Buddha said that if you are suffering, behaving in a very difficult manner, like self-mortification, Atthakila Yoga, then you must have done a lot of bad things in the past life. I mean, because suffering in this life is a result of past life, you are suffering so much now. So maybe you did so many bad things in the past life. So Buddha said so, but of course that doesn't mean that Buddha accepted it. But according to their own view, if they are correct, then of course that is how you have to interpret what they say. So karma determinism is basically to believe that everything that happens to us in the present life is because of past karma. Then what happens is, if everything is past karma, karma is such a huge force, you can't do anything. So whether you do something good or whether you do something bad, you are bound to do that. You can't do otherwise. Now if this is the case, then again the question is, how can you be responsible? Even if you wanted to do otherwise, you can't do otherwise. Even if you wanted to do differently, you can't do differently, because you have to do because it is your past karma. Now again, so the karma determinism means if you believe in the karma, not believe in the karma. If you believe that everything that happens present is due to past karma, then of course, you have the problem of free will. Natural determinism means sometimes not for any, like God or karma or anything like that, but simply some people believe that things in the universe are such that, universe has a certain way of happening, and according to that, by nature, we are determined. So again, that's although it doesn't refer to karma or God, it's also similar view. We think that naturally, not because of God, not because of karma, but because we are part of the nature, so this is the nature's way of happening things. So you believe in the natural, sometimes among the 6 religious teachers during the time of the Buddha, some religious teachers had a similar belief. People are born, they undergo certain number of deaths and births, and then they disappear. Now that is a kind of natural determinism, right? Not determined by God, not determined by karma, but determined by nature, the way of things. And in fact, causal determinism is very important for us in this discussion. Causal determinism means, now if we believe that everything is conditioned by, caused by causes and conditions, then causes and conditions are prior to what you do. Now suppose we are doing X, and for us to do X, there are, some other causes, okay? And for this, there are some other causes. For this, there are some other causes. Now then what happens is, when you do this, it is caused by these things, and this caused by some other things, this caused by some other things, and it goes on and on and on. So if we believe in causal relation, then again there is an issue. If everything is conditioned, then how can you have freedom to do? Now this question we have to discuss a little bit carefully, because we know that the essence of the main teaching of the Buddha is Paticca Samuppada, right? Main teaching of the Buddha is Paticca Samuppada. So Paticca Samuppada means dependent origination. Now if the dependent origination, we have this issue, we have to discuss this issue. How Paticca is there, but still we are free to do things. Because Buddha says on the one hand we are free to do things, but on the other hand Buddha says that things are causally conditioned. So this issue I will come to discuss with you in detail, because but you must see this problem. There is a issue, there is a problem here. The moment you say that things are causally conditioned, how can that happen? If everything is prior causes, then how can you be accounting for your activities? From the present moment you can go back and back and back. But then finally, how long can you go? This caused by something else, this caused by something else. Now, if you want, you can go to the unending process. This process is called infinite regression. Infinite regression means you regress means you go back. Regress means you go back infinitely. Now you can take the causal process infinitely. This is why in Western philosophy, Aristotle came up with idea called first cause. He said that there must be a first cause, because otherwise, you are guilty of infinite regression, because you can go on and on and on and on and on. There is no end. So Aristotle argued that there must be something called first cause. First cause, that is where things started. And from there, things started rolling. And about the first cause, he said, this first cause is uncaused cause. Uncaused cause. That means for the first cause, you can't ask what is the cause of it. Okay? If you believe in the first cause, then you can't ask what is the cause of it. So the first cause is uncaused cause. It cannot have been caused by anything else. So therefore the concept of first cause. Why Aristotle came up with the concept of first cause is because he thought that otherwise we are infinitely regressing. We have to go back and back and back and back. There is no end to it. So therefore he thought that there must be something called first cause, which is uncaused. You can't say first cause has a cause, because first cause is the cause of everything, from where everything is started. Okay? And so he came up with several arguments of that nature to prove that there must have been some beginning. Now, for example, everything is moving. This earth we are living is moving, and the entire solar system is moving. Now there is a question, who started the moving? When did the moving start? What is that thing which caused moving? Now, how are we going to answer that? you can say A is moving B. Okay, who is moving B? B is being moved by C. C is moved by somebody else, something else. So again, you have this issue of infinite regression. You can go back and back and back and back. And Aristotle came up with the idea, first mover, like the first cause. He also came up with the idea, first mover. Now the first mover is unmoved mover. So the first mover doesn't need anything else for it to be moved. It is self-moved. And the first cause is self-caused. And it caused everything else. So this idea was initially argued by Aristotle. Later, Christianity accepted these ideas, and Christianity said the first cause is God. Okay? First cause is God. And although first mover is also God. Like God created this universe, having created the universe, He set it in motion, right? Then ever since it's moving. So you can see that the causal relation ultimately in Aristotle and in the Christian theology going and stopping ultimately in what Aristotle believed to be the first cause. Same thing was absorbed into Christianity, and they presented God as the first cause. But this whole idea of causal relation is something very important for us to understand. If we believe that things are causally conditioned, then how can there be free will? The problem of free will come. I will come to this question again, but before I will come to it, also briefly, biological determinism means there is an idea. This idea is actually very much present in the modern times, modern science also. It says that biologically our bodies are being made, we are being made in such a way that we are selfish. So it says that we cannot do otherwise. In English language, now it's about actually around 30 years ago, there was a very interesting publication came out. Its name is The Selfish Gene. This book is available. You can get some idea about it if you can Google it and see. So selfish gene. Now you know about genes, right? We are made of gene. Genetics is talking about genes. So our body is ultimately made of genes, and then our brain, our health, and everything is determined by our gene. So that is the gene. So selfish gene is, according to this some scientists, we have a gene in our system which is selfish. Like in other words, biologically, genetically, we are born as selfish people. Now, which means that if this selfish gene belief is true, then of course we are selfish by birth. We are selfish by system. How can we be not selfish? We are determined biologically. We are determined biologically to behave in a selfish manner. We can't change it. Now, it is very interesting. Now, if you believe this, of course, this is a scientific view. Now, genetically, we believe that if we can isolate certain genes that are responsible for certain illnesses, scientists say that you can get rid of, if you remove that gene, if you modify that gene, then you can get rid of that illness or something. So this is, there is so much to genetics, I don't know much about it. But basically it means that we are genetically, we are biologically determined group of people. But at the same time it has a rather interesting thing. Now if you can identify that gene, selfish gene, if you can remove it, then we can create people without tanha, not by meditation nor anything, but by biologically, isn't it? Can't we create an arahant by surgery? If you identify the selfish gene, okay? If you identify the selfish gene, if you can remove that selfish gene, then of course that person will not be selfish, right? So anyway, argument goes both sides. But on the other hand, biological determinism says that we are biologically, we are genetically determined people. So I am giving you just several examples according to which we can understand this, the concept of determinism. So that we are determined according to these views in many different ways. But I would like to discuss a little bit in more detail this concept of causal determinism, because so we have many forms of determinism. Okay, causal determinism. Now, causal determinism means basically we are determined by, of course, everything happens due to prior causes and conditions. The basic idea is that. So, things happen due to prior causes. Conditions. Now this is basically what is called causal determinism. Things happen due to prior causes and conditions. So again the same problem as I showed you earlier. If we take any particular event or any particular thing, it has been caused, conditioned by something before it. So if we look at those causes have their own causes. So like that, we have all the way through causes and conditions. In other words, same thing can be a cause of something else, an effect of some another thing. So when you look at universe, we can see if we say A, if we say B and C. Now you can see this A causes B, and then B causes C. Now you can see that B is the result of A. B is the cause of C. So B is both cause and effect. Same thing here. C is the result of B, and also if C causes D, then of course, it is the cause of. So you can see, and then, but here you can see now A, B, C are connected by B. So in logically we can say something like A causes B, B causes C, and then we have something like A causing C, because from here to here, right? Something like that. So this kind of relationship raises the problem of free will. Okay, the issue of free will is a challenging matter in Buddhist philosophy, with its theory of causality, according to which things are determined by prior causes and conditions. Now, my question today is basically, how can we say that even though Buddhism accepts Paticcasamuppada, while accepting Paticcasamuppada, still Buddhism says that we are free to do? How can it be? How can it be justified? Okay? Now this is the question for you to think, because on the one hand, if we say causality has this issue. But on the other hand, while accepting causality, Buddha at the same time says we are free to do things. Now read this last paragraph here. According to K.N. Jayatillaka, by free will in a Buddhist context, it is not meant that there is a will, choice or decision which is unaffected by causal factors that affect it, but that our volitional acts or will, choice or decision, while being conditioned by such factors, are not wholly shaped or strictly determined by them, since there is hidden element of initiative, arabha dhatu, or personal action, purisakara, individual action, attakara, which can within limits resist factors that affect it. So this is the one philosopher's explanation. So on the one hand, what it says is things are caused by prior causes and conditions, but K.N. Jayatillaka says that we have these concepts of arabha dhatu. Arabha dhatu. Arabha means initiative, beginning of something. And then we have the concept of attakara and also purisakara. Buddha says that these things are there. But then the issue is this. If there is causal conditioning, if everything is caused by prior causes, even if you say that there is attakara, purisakara and arabha dhatu, are these two views not contradictory to each other? Of course, Buddha says that we have attakara, we have purisakara, but at the same time Buddha says that things are causally conditioned. Paticca samuppada. Thing is, paticca means dependent on causes and conditions. Now, how are we going to resolve this? Do you see the philosophical problem here? Philosophical problem is, while holding to paticca samuppada as causes and conditions, how can you say that you are free to do certain things? But what you do is conditions by causes and conditions before. Then how can you say that you have attakara? This first you have to really see this philosophical problem. Okay. Now K.N. Jayatillaka is one of the leading Buddhist philosophers now who passed away, and according to him, actually, he says that the volitional acts or will, choice, decision, while being uh, our choices are conditioned, but they are not determined. So he makes the distinction between something like this. What he says is, he says, our actions are conditioned, but not determined. So he says that our actions are conditioned, but not determined. According to K. N. Jayatilaka, there is a difference between something being conditioned and something being determined. So he says that our actions are conditioned by other factors, but they are not determined. So in other words, when we use the word determined, it has a much stronger meaning, something being determined by somebody. So he says that our actions are not determined, but of course they are conditioned. So what is the difference between being conditioned and being determined? Now, according to Paticcasamuppada, we can't reject the idea that what we do are determined. I'm sorry, conditioned. Now, we talked about, in Pali language, we talked about two concepts, hetu, paccaya. Hetu and paccaya. Now, hetu means cause. Paccaya means condition. What is the difference between the two? Is there a difference between the two? Our causes and conditions are different? Hetu and paccaya are different? In fact, this is a somewhat difficult question. If you look at the discourses, we can see that Buddha uses hetu and paccaya almost together, almost synonymously. In the discourses, you find this question, ko hetu ko paccayo. Ko hetu ko paccayo. So in the same explanation, you find these two things. Buddha asks, ko hetu ko paccayo sattanam upadayo, whatever. What is the cause, what is the condition? Actually, in the Pali discourses, we have these both concepts together, but not really made a very sharp distinction. In the later Buddhist literature, they understand these two things somewhat differently. Accordingly, cause means the main factors. Conditions are subsidiary factors. Okay? Now, in the Buddhist literature also, Abhidhamma, in the Paticcasamuppada, we have 12 causal factors. But when we say avidya, paccaya, sankhara, sanskaras are conditioned by avidya. The word used is paccaya. So avidya, paccaya, sankhara, sankhara, paccaya, vijnana, sankaras are conditions by vijnana, and so on. And then in the Patthana, you have 24 paccayas. Hetu paccayo, aramana paccayo, and so on. But the interesting thing is, Patthana begins with hetu paccaya. Hetu is also a paccaya. So in the Theravada tradition, we can see that these two words are used in the somewhat complex manner. So on the one hand, we have the concept of hetu and then the paccaya, but then in the Paticcasamuppada itself, we have the concept of paccaya. And Patthana is really an elaboration of different types of causal relations. And again, the word used is paccaya. But later Buddhist traditions, particularly non-Theravada Nikayas like Sarvastivada and others, they thought that hetu refers to the main factors. Pacce refers to the subsidiary or secondary factors. So the primary factors and secondary factors, that is the idea. There is a very interesting later sutra, which is not in Pali but in Sanskrit. It's called Arya Shalis Ambha Sutra. You read this sutra. This is a very, very interesting analysis about Paticcasamuppada, Pratitya Samutpada there, Arya Shalis Sutra. It talks about two things, Hetu Upanibandha and Pratyaya Upanibandha. Pratyaya means condition, Hetu means Hetu. So it talks about two things, Hetu Upanibandha Pratyaya Upanibandha. So it makes a distinction between Hetu and Pratyaya. Hetu Upanibandha, causal relations, and Pratyaya Upanibandha, conditional relations. So it makes a distinction between the two. So Hetu and Pratyaya, according to early discourses and also according to Abhidharma, do not seem to be different from each other. Particularly according to Paဋ္ဌာna begins with Hetu Pacce. So Hetu as the Pacce. So you can see that the two terms have been used kind of interchangeably. However, when we talk about causes and conditions, we can see that there are certain things primary and certain things secondary. Okay. For example, take the concept of how Chakku Viññāna arises. Chakkhuncha, Paticca, Rupecha, Uppajjati, Chakku Viññāna. Chakkuncha Paticca, conditioned by Chakku, so condition. Rupe, that's locative case, Sattami, when the Rupa is there or when Rupa exists. Chakkuncha Paticca, Rupecha, Uppajjati, Chakku Viññāna. So, depending on the eye, when there is a physical form, Chakku Viññāna arises. Okay. But do you think that Chakku Viññāna can arise in the dark? Okay, you have the eye, you have this desk, but if this hall is completely dark, will you see the desk? No, you will not see the desk. So, in order to Chakku Viññāna to arise, we have to have light, right? So you can see that there are certain things, there are certain other conditions also. Light is a necessary condition. Without light, even though you have eye, even though there is a physical form, you cannot have Chakku Viññāna without eye. Without eye and also without light. But light is not spoken of in the formula. Formula says only Chakkuncha Paticca, Rupecha, Chakku and Rupa. Chakku and Rupa as the causes of Chakku Viññāna. But Chakku Viññāna cannot arise only with Chakku and Rupa. Aloka, light has to be there. And what about the attention? Attention also has to be there. So you can list some other factors for any particular thing to happen. But basically when we talk about causal conditions, we talk about certain main things. So you can see that there are causes and conditions. In that sense, causes can be primary and conditions can be secondary. However, in whatever manner we understand this, the basic problem remains. The basic problem is if things are causally conditioned, if there are causes and conditions prior to it, how can you have Attakara, Purisakara? Now this concept of free will, we don't have a word in the in the discourses for free will actually. I said earlier to you this concept of Chetana. Chetana is volition, intention. But when we say free will, actually it's a little bit different. Okay? Intention to do something is okay. Without intention you can't do. Without volition you can't do things. But when we say free will, what it means is really your ability to make an independent decision. Right? So the Chetana is also necessarily a part of that. Without Chetana you can't do. But even if you take your Chetana, if your Chetana is caused by something else, that something else was caused by another something else, then again Chetana is not free. But we believe that if I can have a Chetana, then I am responsible for that. Now, for example, I don't want to kill this animal, but somebody is trying to kill me if I don't kill the animal. So, I kill the animal. But then I don't have a Chetana. I really don't want to kill the animal, but in order to save my life, I kill it. So then, but when according to Abhidhamma, according to the Buddhist analysis of mind, when I do the killing, of course, I have the killing mind, killing intention. But I am not fully responsible for it, because that is not what I wanted to do. So I do something because somebody else forces me to do that. According to law, you are not completely responsible for that. You did it because, in order to save your life, somebody else is threatening you to do that. So according to the legal procedures, you will not be found guilty. But karma theory is little bit different. Although you did in order to save your life, still you did it. Although you are not fully responsible, you are somewhat responsible. So there will be some karma vipaka because you did something bad. But of course, in your normal circumstances, you will not do that. So Chetana is also important here. However, when we say free will, Attakara, Purisakara, is more, we are talking to the freedom. In one of the discourses in the Anguttara Nikaya, there is an instance where a Brahmin comes and tells the Buddha that he does not believe in free will. Then Buddha asks a very simple question from him. If you don't believe in free will, how did you come here? How do you go from here? You came here on your own, and then you are leaving on your own. So how can you say that there is no free will? So Buddha did not accept it. Now, important thing for us is to see, while accepting Paticca Samuppada, how can you say that you have free will? Either we have to accept that even if things are conditioned, that is not completely enough for something to happen, right? So, but then we have to make a decision. We have to take initiative. But then the problem is, who are we? Am I completely free? Am I different from my mind? Am I different from my past? I mean, who are we? When we talk about Attakara, Purisakara, human action, all these things, how can you do it? Who are you? You make a decision. Now, try to understand this. This is very important and interesting. Suppose there is a situation, something is there, nobody is seen, so I can really steal it. Okay? Now, all the conditions are there. Some valuable thing is there, nobody is around, nobody sees. So without much thinking, you see that you can steal it. But on the other hand, you think that stealing is bad. So you are debating in your mind. Okay? Now, in this situation, how are you going to act? Now here there is a choice clearly. Either you can steal it or you can not steal it. Now there are two situations. I think in this type of situation we make up our mind to do A or B. A is to steal it, B it not to steal it. You can do either. You can do either. But we decide to do A or to do B. How do you do that? You see, I think this problem has to be understood in this manner. Now, when I see something valuable, nobody is seeing, if I feel that I should steal it, I mean that mind comes from my tanha and the sansaric practice, my desire to own things, all these things come, and so I feel that I should take it. But on the other hand, my background in the Dhamma, my Buddhist background, I have been, taught that, stealing is bad. So, so all those things say that don't steal. So on the one hand, my tanha says that steal it. But on the other hand, my upbringing, my Dhamma knowledge, my practice says that don't do that. Now, who is going to decide? Who are you who is deciding it? Interesting thing is actually being a human being, we are conditioned. But in this example, can you see that we are conditioned in two ways? Or we are conditioned in more than two ways? Then something becomes more powerful and either I steal or I don't steal. But either way, I am conditioned, isn't it? But at the same time, so in other words, the freedom means being able to do otherwise, okay? Now being able to do otherwise is the freedom. As a human being, you can do otherwise, you can do differently, because although you are conditioned in several different ways. Even if you steal it, that's a part of your conditioning. Even if you don't steal it, it is still a part of your conditioning, isn't it? Do you see the point? In a given situation, because our conditioning is two ways. As an ordinary human being, as an ordinary human being, so I have A here, I have B here. This is my sansara, tanha, kama, and all these things. But this is my being a Buddhist, learning and all these things. Two ways of conditioning. You can do A, but you are still under the Paticcasamuppada. You can do B, you are still under the Paticcasamuppada, isn't it? Is this the way to understand when Buddha says that human beings have attakara and purusakara? Because on the one hand, we can't say that as human beings we are not conditioned. Otherwise, if you believe that, okay, all these things I can decide. Now who is I? Is this I is not causally conditioned? Now all the factors are there, then I say that, okay, if you understand Buddhism to say that I can decide, then the question is who is I? Question is who is I? I is not conditioned. Now here, you have, this is I. Okay. Now this I is also, I have a whole part of samsara and things I have done, things I have studied, things I have done in this life, all these things is I. So this I is also causally conditioned. Now my conditioning is not only one way. I could either do A or B or even C or many other things. Venerables, I will give you an example. Like you take an animal. Do animals have this kind of choice? Usually not. If you take a dog, you see something edible, dog will eat it. We don't see reasoning or anything like that. But then you take a dog who is trained. Now there can be a dog who is trained not to eat things kept in here and there, who is trained to eat only things that are kept in his plate. Then what happens? He will not eat it. Right? Why? Because of its training. Training means conditioning, right? But if you have an ordinary wild dog or any animal, they will not have moral reasoning, no moral upbringing. Do you see the difference? But a trained animal will behave differently always. The reason is a trained animal means conditioned animal. Conditioned animal is not like any other animal. It makes decisions. I have heard this story about a dog. This dog was going around with a beggar. So this beggar person, with beggars don't get every day to eat. But this dog is very loyal. So one day he was going around, they came to some place, those places, the people were very kind. They said to the beggar, you give this dog to us, we will feed the dog and we will take good care of it. With you this dog is living a miserable life. So the beggar thought, yeah, that is true. Actually, if this dog comes with me, he doesn't have things to eat and he's living a miserable life. So he kept that dog in that house and then the beggar left. But dog was struggling to go behind the beggar, but anyhow dog was tight so he could not go. So the house people, they looked after this dog very well and gave him meals and took care of him, now he is living comfortable life. After 2 years or 3 years, this beggar again passed in that area and came to this house. Dog saw his old master, beggar. Actually the house people untied the dog, let the dog decide. When the beggar was leaving, the dog looked this way, looked that way and left with the beggar. Now there you can see a decision. On the one hand, the dog has these household people who took care of him a couple of years. But on the other hand, his loyalty for the beggar. So you can see kind of wavering between this and this, but then dog decided then went behind the beggar. Now that doesn't happen with every dog, okay? Because every animal, in other words, what I'm trying to tell you is, unless an animal is trained, it doesn't have this, unless it is conditioned, it doesn't have this problem. They will just do something. But human beings, some human beings can be like that actually. Moment you something, you grab it. Because your conditioning is like that, like an animal. But any moral conditioned human being, when he sees that there is something, if you want, you can take, but he will not take. Because he has 2 ways of upbringing. My point is this, either you do A, either you do B, you are conditioned. However, still you have the ability whether you want to do A or B. In other words, what I am trying to tell you is, on the one hand, we are always conditioned. But on the other hand, being a human being, you have special faculties. Particularly being a human being who has moral upbringing. Because some human being can be very much similar to animals, without thinking they just do things. So you can see why Buddha said that we have Attakara, Purisakara and Arabhadhatu, Nikkamadhatu, Parakkamadhatu. Try to understand this very carefully. On the one hand, when we say that things are causally conditioned, we are talking about determinism, causal determinism. However, according to Buddhism, the Buddha says that even though we are causally conditioned, but we are not causally determined according to Buddhism. So in the Buddhist understanding, things are not happening completely determined. Things are different. So the causal determinism and causal conditioning as two different. Now I will give another example. If you have a vehicle, if your vehicle's engine is good, it has gasoline, if everything is okay, when you switch it on, it should start. Now what is that? That's causality. Right? If you have a gun, if everything is okay, you pull the trigger, it will fire. If it will not fire, which means that there is something wrong in it. If your car doesn't ignite it, then the engine has some problem. But if everything is okay, the moment you do this, switch on, the engine will start running. That's a causal conditioning. When everything is provided, it has to happen. Gun has to fire. Engine has to run. However, can you say the same thing about a human being? You do everything to make me anger, does that mean that I am going to behave in one way? Like the engine of the car or like the gun? No. You make me very angry. My natural reaction will be to get into a fight. But I can get into a fight or I can just be silent, right? How can that happen? Now, you anger a dog, right away you will be bitten by the dog, right? Because there is no any other condition. But because, you know, we have been conditioned in different ways. On the one hand, my anger, natural reaction is get into fight with somebody because I have lobha dosa moha. But on the other hand, my training is to not to get angry, not to get, even you get angry, not to behave in such a way. So my training. So you have your several different conditioning. You have your samsaric conditioning, you have your training. Both are conditioned, but you can behave in a manner you like. In other words, we are talking about a human being who is different from other animals. But human being himself is conditioned, it's true. But human being has a choice, a mind, you know, which enables that person to have several choices. You know, there is here you can see the distinction between something being determined and something being conditioned. Okay, so the Buddhist scholars understand what the Buddha said, like Professor K. N. Jayatilaka, that we are not determined, but we are conditioned. You need to understand this point very clearly. Otherwise, if Buddha says that we are causally conditioned, but we are free, that can be a self-contradictory statement. Anybody can ask, how can you be free if you are causally conditioned? If everything happens strictly according to causes and conditions, then you can't be free. But here the important thing is, according to Buddhism, we know that being born as a human being is a very rare thing, right? Dullabhancha manussatthang. To be born as a human being is a very rare thing. Because human being, by his training, is different. Human being can be conditioned, can be trained to do completely differently. I mean, ordinary human being without any training will be doing according to lobha dosa moha. But a trained human being, conditioned human being, also will have ability to do differently. So, you know, this, I think it has to be understood in this manner. So, causal conditioning, according to Buddhism, is not complete form of determinism. Now, if your behavior is completely determined, then you can't do otherwise. You have to do exactly the same thing. But people do otherwise. I mean, there are many examples. Like, the people make very difficult decisions sometimes. I know one example, something happened, actually it happened in a train accident. So this car got stalled right on the middle of the road. Okay, and all the doors were locked. So the driver was the father. He jumped out of the car and tried to open the doors. But now train is just coming. But he could not open. Then either he could just run away and save his life. But he did not do that. You know what he did? He just got into the car. So everybody all died. Now what is that? I mean, that is a moral decision, right? That man could just very easily save his life. But then his wife and children are going to die. So within a 1/100th of a second, he made the decision and he just jumped into the car. So then he died with everybody else. Now that is the ability to do otherwise. Because usually our inclination is to save ourselves, right? If people die, okay, you save your life. But then this man did totally opposite. Why? How? He could do totally opposite because he has a certain different approach, certain different conditioning. But both acts are dependently arisen. Okay? Because one act says that you must love your family, you must love your children, that sort of thing. The other upbringing is you must save your life. So both are two different types of conditioning. But of course, human being can decide for one particular type of conditioning. So, but either way, what you do has been conditioned, causally conditioned, Paticcasamuppanna. Okay, I tried to explain this to you because when we talk about ethical behavior, ethics, these concepts are very, very important. And I started this discussion last week and then tried to show you how certain very important conditions are there for ethical behavior. And then finally, the basis of Buddhist ethics is naturalist in the sense that it rejects two metaphysical views, namely the creationist view, Issara-Nimmanavada, and also the Attavada. Now, the conclusion of this discussion is we can use the word, we say that Buddhist position is, I use the word naturalist. What I mean by that is, the naturalist, on the one hand, it rejects the Issara-Nimmanavada, that there is a creator God. Now the other thing is Atmavada, Attavada. Attavada says that there is something unchanging within us, Atma. Now if there is something unchanging within us, Atma, again it is not easy to make meaningful the concept of moral responsibility. But according to Buddhism, there is no unchanging Atma. But there is Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankhara Vijnana, which are conditioned by every moment. So in other words, Buddhism doesn't deny that as a human being, I have a mind, I have a thinking ability, all these things are there. But those things are also conditioned. But if something is conditioned, then it can't be Atma. Okay? That's the beauty of this argument. So if everything is conditioned, there cannot be unconditioned anything in us. So the God is unconditioned. Atma is also unconditioned. According to Upanishadic philosophy, Atma is described as na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Hanyamane sharire, when the body is being destroyed, na hanyate, this doesn't get destroyed. So in other words, Atma view says that we in us has something indestructible that is not destroyed at death and that goes to the next life. Buddha says that there is nothing like that. So this is the basis of Buddhist ethics. No God to decide these things, no Atma to unchanging phenomenon to be responsible or bear responsibility, function as the real doer behind our sensory perception, no such thing. So in that sense, we can say that Buddhist ethics is naturalist. This is basically some preliminary observations I wanted to discuss with you when we are discussing ethics. However, in my next session, I will be discussing with you more familiar things. So don't worry, I'm not going to discuss all these philosophical issues every day. But today I just wanted to make you aware the significance of this concept of Paticcasamuppada and also the concept of free will. So although finally there is no one word for free will in Buddhism, all these concepts like Attakara, Purisakara, Arabhadhatu, all these things suggest that there is within the causal process, a human being has the ability to choose, ability to do otherwise. Okay? So, but choosing or doing otherwise is also not unconditioned, it's also is conditioned. All right, so I will wind up from here. We have a few minutes if you want, if you have any questions or anything to be clarified. You know this, the piece you have on your table by Professor K.N. Jayathilaka that addresses some of these issues. I think that's not a very long, okay, I will come to you. Please read it carefully. Yes, sir.
So you wrote, our action are conditioned but not
determined, yeah.
But which will be conditioned? Our action are conditioned sedana.
Okay, you mean our Chetana is conditioned, is that what you ask?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You asked
Yeah. Okay, let me try to explain. What I said is our actions are not determined but conditioned. Okay, now Chetana, if you take Chetana, now Chetana is basically a Chetasika, right? Chetana is something, you know, that comes along with other Chetasikas. Now in my analysis I showed you this, what we are talking here is not exactly Chetana. Chetana is a requirement for something to be action. Right? So without Chetana, without intention, without mind, we are not doing anything. Now that is the function of Chetana. But then when we say free will, actually, it is, we can say it is connected to Chetana, but of course it is also different from Chetana. Free will is for us to be able to make a decision. Now, I have a Chetana to kill, but I can have Chetana to not to kill. My example was there is something we can steal. I can have a Chetana to steal it, or I can have Chetana to not to steal it. So, Reverend, Chetana can be going either way.
Because the Buddha wanted to give some of the Kiramode villagers, they asked to the Buddha. So the Buddha, always religion leaders, they always talking.
Right.
How can I live? How can I understand?
Yes.
At the time the Buddha said, you need to decide in freedom thought. You need to determine your
Yes.
mind.
Yeah.
So, as a basic religion people, how can I understand an action?
Okay, if I get your question correctly, what you say is, like Buddha says to Kalamas, simply don't accept because your religious teacher says, but accept when you know for yourself. But you know, Reverend, is something very interesting. There, what the Buddha says is, okay, don't accept. He gives 10 things, don't accept. But then he says, Yada tumhe kalama attanava janeyatha. That's the word used by the Buddha. Kalamas, when you know it for yourself, that this is kusala, this is akusala, then do kusala, give up akusala. I mean, that I think that's, Reverend, very clear, because when I know that this is kusala and this is akusala, there are two things. One thing is I have to know, and then I must be able to act accordingly. Simply by knowing what is good and bad, doesn't mean that I will do good and not to do bad. I mean, all those people who do bad things, they know also the good thing. All those people who do good things, they also know the bad thing. But of course, you don't do good, bad, you do good. But some people don't do good, they do bad. Why? That is the conditioning. So that is where, you have the knowledge. But in addition to knowledge, you have to have some kind of training. You know what is good, you know what is bad. But what do you want to do? Of course, you make this decision. Now that shows that, your causal conditioning. So Reverend, I think there is a distinction here. My knowledge is one thing, but the way I want to do is one thing. The way I want to do is determined by my conditioning. Knowledge is one thing. Of course, when I know, it also makes a big impact in me. If I know something to be good, that's a good reason to do good. But my knowing what is good will not always make me do good, right? Now if I want to say I want to smoke, I know that smoking is bad, but you will smoke. So you know it is bad, but you do it, right? Because your desire is much more than that. So, this is what it means. But Chetana means the moment you do it, that is the Chetana. But how do you come to do it? That is free will. Is that make clear something like that? Okay, now I feel that I should smoke. But my decision to smoke is my free will. But when I smoke, what I have is the intention. Like when I steal this particular thing, that moment I have the Chetana. But either I can steal or not steal. If I steal, I have what is called doing it. But if I don't steal, I have virati. I refrain from that. So, thank you very much. This is a good question, Reverend.
This view is a Buddha view is a good, but another religion view is I think they cannot understand another religion because we see Buddha view.
Yeah.
So other people, other religion people, if they can see, they never understand.
Well, it depends on certain things. By certain things, Reverend, many religions are similar. Now, what I said about stealing, Christianity also will say the same thing. Stealing is bad. So, difference among religions depends on, like if you take any theistic religions also have a lot of good things shared by Buddhism. And also Buddhism started in ancient India. Vedic religion had a lot of good things Buddha accepted. Jaina religion had a lot of good things Buddha accepted. So we can't say that always, other religions don't see it or something. But there are important differences. But when it comes to basic good and bad, many religions are similar, except perhaps Islamic view, where they don't have any problem of killing, that's a different thing. Because their conception of good is, different, very different from others. But basically, if you take many other religions, they have good and bad, right and wrong, similar things. But Kalama's case, those Kalamas did not have a religion. They said that we do not have any religious teacher. I mean, they were kind of free in that sense. Then Buddha says, okay, you don't need religion. Because also Kalamas, what's called Vinyu Purisa. I mean, not everybody. Anybody and everybody can't decide what is right and wrong. You have to be a Vinyu Purisa. Vinyu Purisa means a knowledgeable person. You have to be an intelligent person to decide it. Okay, we are coming close to 11 o'clock maybe is for the time for your meal. So, okay, then I will wind up for this morning. We will meet again in the afternoon to discuss world religions. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much for questions. Okay.